I had Deb as a professor. I had Deb as a professor in the early 1980s. So did my husband and my brother. I've had him as a colleague and a friend, a surrogate granddad to my kids. And I've been able to watch him for 39 years make a difference in the lives of so many people, many of whom were on this call and others that will be watching our recording. Deb, I know that you are heartbroken to not still be in the hallways. We've talked about that. But I just want to start by saying you are very much in these hallways. Your presence through the people on this call and the thousands and thousands, 28,000 students you have impacted are forever part of what we have here at Walton. And I'm just delighted to honor you today and learn from you. I'm going to throw a quick comment in the chat, but I'm going to turn it over to Deb first and just say thank you for being Deb.
Well, thank you, Molly. I might tell you, I've communicated with over 300 students since I've been here. And just since January the 1st, I've actually communicated with about 279, 80, something like that. So I'm still communicating and still writing to them, and it's been a great time to do that. But I'd like to thank all of you for coming today and inviting me to do this. I haven't done a lot on Zoom, so you'll have to stick with me. And then the exchange rate can be a little bit hard for us too. But at least I'd like to say thank you so much and welcome for being here with us. I received on Monday of this week, I received an email from a young lady who is a junior now. And this is part of what her email said. It said, campus life is interesting for sure. I have two hybrid classes, one day online and one day in person. Then the other three are strictly remote. I miss in-person classes so much and I'm ready to go back to the normal environment. I get a lot of responses like this. This one I just got from a young lady who asked me to do a recommendation letter for her. So I'd like you to know that they're having a really hard time, just like we're having a hard time. And I believe that what we do is we can excite them, we can engage them, we can move them forward by how we approach this changing environment. Remember, when I was teaching and when I first came to the University of Arkansas, we didn't have the internet. We only had the internet, beginning in 1990. And so that's really changed us an awful lot. So in thinking about this, I went back to Albert Einstein, and a statement that he has made is, it is the supreme art of teaching to awaken joy in creative expression and knowledge. And when you read more of what Einstein actually said, he really said teaching was to empower other people. So I've often said to my classes, I'm not a teacher. I'm here to empower you to do things on your own and to know that you are doing them in a way that will be efficient and effective for you. So we're going to talk about empowerment a bit today. So if you'll go forth with me, this will jump through, I'm sure. It runs a little bit slow. But I'd like to start off just like a movie in some respects and let you see what's coming up in our program today, because I have a lot of things that I use on my online material and in-class material that may help you as well too. I would like to first start off with a few things that are career based on beliefs. And in my belief, I think students don't care much about what I know until they know that I care so much about them. And I think that's important for us to be able to know. So my objective in terms of knowing them is to the very first day, be there when they're in class to greet them. And when they come through the door, I said, what is your name? And that's the first contact I've had with them, such that over the first, when I have 150 in the class, it takes me about 2 weeks to learn their names. But when I have 40 in a class, I can learn them all in 1 hour. So the objective was to learn, to let them know that I cared about them. And then second consideration of my reflection is that good teaching is a combination of preparation and theater. And I really believe that preparation, even though I know it takes a lot of time to prepare for classes, that putting theater and presentation to the delivery becomes absolutely so important. And those are the things that people remember. They're not going to remember all the content. The third consideration is I asked what was my purpose there, and that was to be able to help people make a difference in their lives so that they make differences in communities. So building leaders that make difference in dynamic environments is what I think that we do at the university. The fourth thing is I think of this every day in my prayers. It's my privilege and blessing to have an opportunity to teach. I don't really do that so much anymore, but I do have a chance with my grandchildren to teach them algebra and trig and those types of things, and I enjoy that. And the last one I thought about is, I may have to cover ground more than once to achieve excellence, but I believe that the goal of excellence is worth the repeating. So in class, people will think sometimes, you're kind of redundant. Well, in my orientation, I like to think in terms of redundancy helps people to be able to learn. So I'd like to show you
It's just another night,
Fayetteville and the university.
and I'm
Enjoy
staring
this.
at the moon. I saw a shooting star and thought of you. I sang a lullaby by the waterside and knew if you were here, I'd sing to you. You're on the other side as the skyline splits in two, miles away from seeing you. But I can see stars from America. I wonder, do you see them too? So open your eyes and see the way our horizons meet, and all of the lights will lead into the night with me. And I know these scars will bleed, but both of our hearts believe. All of these stars will guide us home. I can hear your heart on the radio. It beats. They're playing Chasing Cars, and I thought of us. Back to the time you were lying next to me. I looked across and fell in love, and so I took your hand back through lamplit streets and knew everything led back to you. So can you see the stars over Amsterdam? Hear the song my heart is beating to. So open your eyes and see the way our horizons, and all of the lights will lead into the night with me. And I know these scars will bleed, but both of our hearts believe. All of these stars will guide us on and I can see the stars from America.
Those are the things that I remember from the university. I have many more memories than that, but I know that many of you are not getting back to the campus much right now. And so when I think of back at the campus, I ask myself about the students that I've had. And I know that I've been teaching for 50 years, and I'm sure that I have my own process and approach to being able to do that from when I started teaching. My first year actually was at Memphis State, and then I went to Drake University for 2 years and loved that. Went to Georgia for 4 years, then to Eastern Michigan, then to Florida, then to Denver, and then finally to Arkansas, where I stayed for 39 years and retired. Um, so I asked myself, maybe what I ought to do is be more student learner focus and see how I can change my teaching to fit the way that people learn. And so I've asked myself through all these changes in that 50 years, how might I enhance my subject matter with punch? What might I do to make it really different so that when people come to the classroom, they're excited. When they're in the classroom, they're engaged. And when they leave the classroom, they're still excited and they remember what they actually saw. So I'm going to share with you some very brief things, and then I'm going to show you, let you sit in my class for 3.5 minutes and see kind of let you bring things together for yourself. Molly asked me to think in terms of 5 things that really impacted upon me in my career, and I've tried to put them here through A through E. The first one was how to embrace commitment. What was my role as a teacher? Am I a teacher? Is that what I am? I knew I had to be a researcher. I liked teaching. I liked instruction. I liked community service. I liked volunteering. I'm an Eagle Scout, so I did those kinds of things an awful lot. But I think the first thing that I've done at every university that which I've gone to, and of the very large number that I've been a guest lecturer at, is ask, what is my role here, and how do I embrace this community so that they can see my level of commitment? And by doing that, then I move to the planning of the results. And this is for me, lecture preparation and mapping relevance. So in all of my lectures, you'll see this in just a couple of moments. I have some things that I put together in my lectures. And the question is, how do I make those relevant to the student? And I look for examples of relevancy. You're going to see some of those as well, too. Third consideration is scholarly engagement and delivery, which I look at theater. And to me, this is fostering discovery. And in addition to fostering discovery, it's boosting engagement and raising the energy level of the room 2 ways. Now, Tom Jensen and I used to walk to class at 7:30 in the morning. And as we'd walk down the hall, I would be in room 116. We would be cheerleaders for one another. I learned so much from listening to Tom and watching Tom. And as we traveled the world, Molly, with you and Tom and Rick Ressler and Bob Brady, Carol Reeves, I learned so much more because I got to watch you guys teach, which I don't normally get to be able to do. So in this boosting of engagement and raising energy, my objective is to create scholarly involvement and transfer ownership of the material to the students and have them learn through processes that we record. Hi, Brian. And the third consideration, moving on, pardon me, is to scholarly reinforcement and celebrating successes. And so here I'm trying to gain acceptance and create confirmation that what we're studying has a value to them relative to their futures and to their careers as we develop them to go back and add and make a difference to their communities. And finally, as we move back to the scholarly reinforcement and celebrating successes, I believe we have to assess our outcomes and to reinforce and improve those particular outcomes as well too. And so I have kind of a matrix I wanted to share with you. And this is kind of where I start, or where I have started in my classroom. I have a question for fundamentals, or a unit for fundamentals, and the essential things. So here in the preparation of my classes, there's a minimum that I have to cover, and I have to decide what that minimum is. That's not the limit of the classroom, that's just the beginning. I have to look at scholarly support, and Blackboard has been a real help to me. I have to figure out how to present the product through the lecture, through a list or graphics, and you'll see some more of that shortly. Then reinforcing those concepts in the classes so people can engage them and see them, and then what to emphasize. Then still staying in that vector, understanding basic concepts is an important part of comprehension and relevance. So I try to use scenarios to drive concepts and challenge circumstances with breakout groups, and I have a lot of office hours. And the other thing that I do, which I know Scott would see me on the weekend, and so would Bob Dawson, is I would do weekend tutorials. I'd usually work from 7 o'clock in the morning until about 12 on Saturday, and then I'd work on Sunday, and I would have tutorials for students on those particular days. When I look over to the prospects and applied situation, try to use examples. So, you have the origin of examples and fundamentals, development of case discussions, video analysis, engaging in thought by inquiry. And each one of these are considered in all of my classes. And in a week, I have to cover all of these considerations except for the last one. And this one is really bringing in outside people. So having corporate guests, usually WCOB graduates, having them read journal articles. And in all of my classes, my students read journal articles. I have 18 to 30 journal articles in every class. If the class only has 40 people in it, they have journal articles. If it has 400 in it, they have journal articles, but they only have 18 to 20. And those drive the class. So in the smaller classes, I really emphasize the individual scholarly research because I think that inquiry has an important part for them. And then, of course, in 1995 or 6, we really started emphasizing team projects. And then occasionally we'll do on-site visitations and field trips for the smaller classes or for the graduate classes as well too. But this matrix kind of lies out when I plan my week, which I always do on Sunday. I go through this as a checkoff, almost like a pre-flight checkoff for an airline. You know, you wouldn't start off the ground unless you knew your plane was going to be able to fly. So when I think in terms of the students that sit in my classes, I realize that not all of them have the same amount of interest in the classes. And so in looking at this, what I've tried to do is build an approach that will actually embrace, engage, and involve people as much as possible. And so for the next 3 minutes, I would like you to just sit back and imagine that you're in a classroom. And I'd like to show you some of what the classroom, almost every one of these slides takes a day to do the slide or a day and a half. But see if you can put them together and see that. All of my classes begin with an introduction, just like a television show. And you can imagine with a 20 by 20 screen, this looks really good. I find that weekend review sessions do really, really well for students. I find that sound really attracts their attention. I've done research on this as well too. You might see this on Sunday if you watch Super Bowl.
Oh, no, I thought I just ordered tacos.
Nope. Sushi, ramen,
Burgers, tandoori chicken.
some milk from the store, and
And let me guess, cookies?
Wow, me hungry.
Yeah. Here, I'll call some friends to help us eat.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Get more from your neighborhood. DoorDash.
Hey, yo, Grover, you like ramen?
Now this is a beginning of an institutional marketing presentation. I've used the university as an institution for which I wanted them to take part in and ask who we are, what we are, and what we try to do. This leads to a lot of discussion. That was actually Don White and Silva in that part of the film. You may remember Don, he retired several years back. I find that when they project themselves into video, I can get a lot more out of the conversation. Thank goodness for PowerPoint and Blackboard. Again, I've done research on sound, how sound draws attention to what I want them to be able to do. And this is on the beginning of a segmentation lecture that takes an hour to do that. Current events is pretty important. So with political decisions coming up, you'll see kind of what I've done here. And this takes 2 days to be able to do. We always emphasize the common frame of reference and let them know what it is, and then we ask them to be able to work with that. This is more current than what I really designed it to be. You'll see in the sound.
There's something happening here. What it is ain't exactly
This can be
clear.
controversial because of the topic.
There's a man
But I have
with a
found
gun
that
over there,
they understand more if I can show
telling
them
me
the action.
I got to beware. I think
And
it's
these are
time we
juniors that I
stop.
have.
Children, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going down.
And all of my classes end with music. They all leave with music just like they come in with music. So if you put those together, each one of those, there will probably be 8 or 10 slides with those areas, but it sets a stage for the class. I don't have a problem with attendance. I've never ever had that problem with attendance in my classes, but I find that at the end of my classes, personally, what I've done since I started teaching many years ago is I reassess when I go back to my office what that class is like. And here's what I make my assessment personally on. And I do this every class, every day. The first one is the effectiveness of the class. Did I meet my content goals? And that's 40% of my assessment in a weighted factor method. Did I meet my time constraints? That's 15%, because sometimes I go over. Do I listen to the participants, and what did I hear? Was there engagement that was there? That's 20% of my overall personal evaluation. And then for the responsiveness, the quality of the class interaction and discussion, I think that's really important. Even in a class that has 400 people, we still can bring in segments of that class or sections of that class. And then the general level of accomplishments, that's my personal feeling of how I've done. That's 5% of the overall evaluation. The final situations I asked, did I make a difference in the life of one person that day of 400 that would be in the class? And that's my only goal, is to make the difference in the life of just one person. Now, the likelihood is it's going to be hopefully better than that, but that's an important part of what I do. But I do this after every class that I've ever taught, beginning back 50 years ago. So if you go back to what I talked about in the beginning of embracing the role in lecture preparation and mapping, and scholarly engagement, scholarly involvement, and scholarly reinforcement, what I believe is really successful that I reflect on, that I would like to do again today, is planning for the results, fostering discovery, boosting engagement and raising the energy level of the classroom, gaining acceptance and confirmation of who I am and what it is that I'm teaching and where it's important and how it integrates with all the other disciplines, and finally assessing the outcomes, reinforcing and asking, how can I improve this next time? So every class that I've had, my favorite class of all to teach is marketing principles. My second of all favorite to teach is brand management or market research. My fourth most would be probably consumer behavior. But I use this process in every one of those classes. So when I think back, we have a really nice community back here, but when I think back to the university, obviously I think of Old Main and the meaning of Old Main to me and the value of Old Main. And I think that what we do is we stand by our students. We help them to seek discovery and scholarly improvement. And we set a stage for, I hope, modeling for their careers. I think the thing that everyone that I've seen on the screen so far, one of the things I know that you're really known for is inspiring other people. And Christian, I know that you have that. I know a lot of the people that you've had in class. And the inspiration that you have is something that I really, really, really enjoy. And that goes with them. Molly got a call from one of my students that I had 40 years ago at the University of Denver to ask about me. Back, I guess it's in October. And I still get calls here all the time from students, which I really, really enjoy. So what I'd like to say to you is thank you for your welcome to have me back to the campus. It's been a pleasure putting this together and thinking about all of you. I went on the university website and looked at all of your pictures and all the new people's pictures, and it's amazing how many people I don't really know that well. They're in other departments. But it's been a pleasure. And when I think of you, Christian, I think of Daniel and how long Daniel's been in my life as well too. And all of you that have children, I've been very functionally involved with that. Brian, I remember you when you were a student long, long time ago, and you're one of our best professors. And Carol, you're always on the top of the list. I mean, I can't see all of your pictures that are here now, so I can't see who all is there. But I think of the people that have really impacted upon me an awful lot. And certainly Molly and John Cole and Bill Qued, who I've known for a long time. Daniel Villanova, who hasn't been with us but 2 years, really had an impact on me as I listened to him engage with students through there. Adnan is a person who has spoken of so frequently around the campus, and I've had a chance to sit outside of his classroom door and listen to him as well. Bill Greenhaw has been a spark plug for me. Noel Morris, another spark plug for me. Gosh, I could go through, I have listed out all the history of the faculty members who have retired that I'm going to write a letter and send that to many of you. But I want you to think about the people that I knew in 1981 that are no longer alive, but the impact they have made along the way. Now that's a great picture right there. So, Molly, that's pretty much what you asked me to talk about. So I would like very much to entertain any questions that you have. Thank you so much for having me here. You make my life so meaningful.
Well, Deb, we love you, and I love the notes I took on this. I also want to thank Tom Jensen, because Tom came to me in December and said, there is so much knowledge in Deb, and there's such a gap with him not here. And it was thanks to Tom that we started down this path of putting this together. So thanks to both of you for doing that. Maybe, gosh, with all these people on here, maybe if you just want to jump in the chat to say you have a question, and I'll just call people out from the chat if that's okay.
Let me tell you, I really appreciate the 25 minutes, but it's kind of like, here's a recipe, but it takes longer to do that.
I know, I felt awful, Deb, and you kept reminding me of what a constraint it was. So it was hard. Michael Gibbs, would you like to jump in?
Hi, Michael.
Yeah. Hi, Deb. And thank you so much for being with us today. It is a joy to see you and hear your voice and hear your playlist.
Are you still singing?
I am still singing. Yeah, I still sing when I can and when the church allows me to. Thank you. Thank you. I have a question for you about something you mentioned in the presentation about the post-class assessment, where you kind of evaluate each class.
Right.
This is something that I, as an artist, I would say I'm probably my own worst critic when it comes to performing, and I think that traverses to teaching. What do you do? What is your next step after that assessment? How do you use that assessment for the next step for the next class or the next week?
Actually, I've used it for 50 years for the very next day of my life. I think back of the assessment, and I want to find out what could I have done better to engage. So what I do essentially is that my career, I think, and especially at the University of Arkansas, is one that it was never finished. It's always molding and shaping and polishing and knocking off the rough edges and wiping out the scratches, and taking what teaching is a piece of art, but I always wanted it to be a masterpiece. And to me, you're always shaping and molding and polishing to be able to do that. And that's the exact same way that I look at every one of my students. When students come to my classes, I look at each of them on a potter's wheel, and they're a stand of clay. And if I don't touch them, they turn into a brick. But if I keep the potter's wheel spinning and give them excitement, when I figuratively lay my hands upon them, I begin to give them shape. Now, they have a reaction to that, and they can also help to determine that shape. But if you don't excite them and engage them in the process, they don't really add to that shape overall. So what I've done since I started teaching is I've always felt like it was necessary to say, did I accomplish what I wanted to be able to accomplish? And I probably learned a lot of that when I was probably 11, 12 years old in the Boy Scouts and going all the way to an Eagle Scout.
Sure.
So I think the assessment, it's like I made a key lime pie the other day, and I love key lime pie. So I made it, first time I've made one in 15 years, and I ate it, and then I checked my blood sugar, and it was 270. I threw the rest of it away.
Yeah.
The
Sure.
pie was great, but it
Yeah.
didn't do very much for me.
Yeah. Thank you.
That's a great
That's
question.
fantastic.
Thank you
Yeah.
so much for asking that
You're
question.
welcome. Thank you, Doug.
Say hello and everyone in the tech center.
I
for me.
will. Absolutely. Absolutely.
And Deb, I believe Adnan has a question.
Hello again, Adnan.
Hey, Dov, thank you so much. Well, I want to start by first thanking you for this great presentation, for impacting me personally. And also, I would like to thank the community in the Walton College of Business. This is my second, attendance for an event with the Walton College of Business. And for those people who don't know me, I have appointment in 3 colleges, Del Bombers, Fulbright, and the Graduate School. And this is by far the most family-oriented community. I mean, the Walton College of Business is something where, every time I attend, it's like a family. You guys know each other very well. And the interaction, of course, thanks to Molly and people like you, Dub, for initiating such kind of family community. And several years ago, when I attended your presentation, and you mentioned the word care. That was the word that really struck me in the heart. And we all go and teach. I think we all know how to teach, but are we really successful in showing students that we care about them? And I shared in my presentation with the community, with the Walton College community a few months ago, that, if you read my feedbacks, annual evaluations from students, you will see the word care nearly every single comment by students. So that is very important part of us being teachers, but showing students that you really care about them comes with responsibilities. And one of the responsibilities that I personally struggle with a lot is recommendation letters. So when you teach a class 450 and you're teaching 1,000 students a year, and they know you care about them, and they know you'll take the time to write them recommendation letters, they will always reach out to you. And this leaves me in a struggle between how much research I'm doing and the service and the teaching and university that have you teach, you win awards and then you end up teaching more than what you're supposed to do. So how did you end up putting this balance between the many students, I'm sure, that reach out to you asking you to write these recommendation letters, and plus your teaching and service and research?
Well, Adnan, to be very, very honest with you too, I didn't balance the research part of my commitment in the last 18, 20 years of my career. I put it into 2 things, service and to teaching. I really enjoyed the research, but when I came to the university, I came as the chairman of the Department of Marketing, and we didn't have a family-like environment. People didn't talk to each other very much then. And the very first person I hired because of his renown on campus was Tom Johnson. And Tom hired him from social psychology.
Hi, Tom, he is listening.
Well, I hope Tom is there, because Tom had a big impact on me. And then when we hired people, Tom was also, by the way, the year that I hired him in 1981 to begin in 1982, was the outstanding graduate student teacher on campus. And that was really important to me. So what we looked for were people that had recognition for teaching and then had the ability to do research work. So my objective was to be able to break down the barriers and find out what people needed to accomplish the goals of teaching, research, and service. Now, for me, last year, my last full year at the university, I wrote nearly 400 student recommendations. Since I've been here, I've written certainly 100, maybe 125 recommendations. And one of the things that I've done, first of all, the students know that I know them by name. I know that's hard in a class of 400, but if people will talk to you, they'll say, well, what he does is he stands at the door when you come in and he makes you shake their hand, and eventually he knows your name. And so not only do I know their name, I also know where they sit without a seating chart. So when I pass back examinations in a class of 150 to 180 people, I can pass those back in 11 minutes as opposed to 40 minutes.
That's hard to beat.
I prearrange all those exams and just go down and pass them out without ever calling out the names. So they know from my daily behavior that I care. When you'll have people that have they'll have problems, not only with academic problems, but personal problems. And because I have office hours on the weekends, they can come in and sit down and spend more time with that as well too. At the university, to give you an example of maybe some of the feedback, I've been to over 90 weddings of students at the university. And I still have their anniversary dates, and I still send them anniversary cards. So a lot of that's important. But I think the most important thing that I learned in 1964 from a professor whose name was Van Oliphant, who was my macroeconomics professor. He's the only teacher in my undergraduate program that knew my name, the only one. He later became the provost at Ole Miss. But I thought that was really interesting. So I imitated that behavior. And then I had another professor in graduate school whose name was Jerry Clutter in Forest Resources. That's where I took my statistics. And he made every statistics class relevant, and really we enjoyed it so much. So a lot of what I do is an imitation of Van Oliphant and Jerry Clutter. And then another thing, Molly, and those people who travel overseas with us to do the international programs, I got a chance, Adnan, to watch them, and I was able to imitate them as well too. So it's imitative copying. It's probably some copyright infringement type of a thing. Stealing is what it actually is. But through imitation, I've learned to do much better. And when I have people, for an example, Adnan, that would have you for a class, I might say, what do you like best about him? And quite commonly, the same thing that you just said, well, he seems to really care an awful lot. And that's what my evaluations say as well, too. So personalizing is important. Embracing, engaging, and reinforcing people to be able to be empowered to do things on their own and make decisions by themselves. Teaching is not a one-way process. It's a two-way process. And I always say I will learn more from them than they ever learn from me. And that's absolutely true.
Thank you, Dub. Always an inspiration to me and to others. Thank you so much again.
And I do enjoy the chocolate you brought me one time too, by the way. The candy bar.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Are there other questions? Let me say while I'm sitting here, there some of you that I can only see four people. I can't see all of you that are there. There are colleagues that are here today that I have watched, observed, maybe walked with them as they were going through some very, very difficult times. And through that situation, I have learned to be more compassionate. So I can tell you that those of you that I know and know well have changed my life immeasurably. I can think of people that were in PhD programs, several of you who I've had as undergraduate students, graduate students who went on to PhD programs, and then those of you who were teaching with us who went on to PhD programs that had difficult times. And I remember talking with you about those things and how grateful I was that you felt comfortable coming to me and asking me, what would you do under this situation? I even have one member of the faculty that used to say, what would Dub do? As if you had a bad situation, well, what would Dub do? Well, that was really, really, that was a wonderful comment for me. It made me feel like I was valued. And so commonly, teaching is an insular kind of consideration, and research is very insular. And so we didn't get to interact. Now, we have had some deans that have really emphasized interaction, and I think that's helped our college become more of a family, Adnan, as well.
Deb, I think you're exactly right. That aspect of it being an insular job and then combined with this whole COVID remote environment, I think it's really made us appreciate what life was like before that and the interactions we had in the hallway. I would love to jump to Carol Shook, and then after that, Susan Bristow.
Thank you. Hi, Carol.
Hey, Deb. I have been working.
Dr. Shook.
Yes. I have been working with some PhD students who have never taught before. And I wondered, what advice would you give to students that are teaching for their first time in they're very early in their career?
Well, the number one thing, obviously, to me, is preparation. And when I first came to the university, there were people in my department that their preparation for class began at the vestibule of their door when they were walking to class and ended at the vestibule of the door when they got to class. So I believe that preparation has an awful lot to do with it. But I think having a self-assessment, why am I here? What is my role? What is my purpose? That's an important consideration to us. And then to engage teaching, if it's a one-way process, it's just a lecture. And I think that we think in big classes, teaching is just a one-way process, but it's not. It's a two-way process. And it doesn't have to occur just in the classroom. It can occur outside of the classroom as well. And so office, in the hallway, when I had publications. I was very, very proud of those publications. But every day when I walked in the hall, I was more proud of walking in the hall when people said, "That's Dub, and he cares." It gave you a persona, so to speak, and I really, really thought that was important. Another thing that I think is important too, Carol, is quick recovery when people have examinations. When I first came to the university in 1981, my first class was 135 people, and I tried to give written examinations. And it took 3 weeks to get them back, and it didn't have any meaning when I gave them back. So in my large classes, I created a different way of using multiple choice examinations where I measured basic knowledge, basic understanding, and then extended understanding. So I could measure what they were actually learning. But I was able to get them back, not at the next class day, but if the exams were over by 12 o'clock that day, they got their answers by 5 o'clock that afternoon on email. And then when they got back on Wednesday in class, I had slides set up where the difficulties were, and I went back and went through those slides and reinforced those slides again. But to me, the thing that's become most important to me, and Molly's been in my class too, and I would hope she would say with this, is to individualize to the people in the classroom. That personalization process becomes so important. And like Adnan said, people say you care. They see that, they feel that, they embrace that. And again, I've been so fortunate to have really, really good faculty friends throughout the College of Business that really live that kind of an orientation. But make sure you want to teach before you get in the classroom, because not all people who want to teach do that very well. So embracing that role is important to me. Thanks for that question, Carol.
And Susan, and then Alicia.
Yes, I just wanted to make the comment. Hi,
Hey,
Deb.
Susan.
It's so good to see you.
It's better for me to see you, believe me.
One of the things that we learned from you is about caring and wow, customer service. And I'm so grateful that you have given us an opportunity to learn that customer service, especially that Germany trip that you allowed me to be a part of. It has made a difference in my teaching.
You blessed us with your presence in the Germany trip. And I've been very fortunate to have Susan with me since she was an undergraduate through her PhD program. Are you okay?
Yeah, sorry, it's so good to see you. Sorry, I'm so emotional.
This young lady has been in my life for 25 years. She has changed my life pretty much more than any student I ever had. When she used to work for me as essentially the head of our CMED Center for, you might have called herself the administrative assistant, but she was the spark plug that was there. And one of the things that she told me that was really important, and I mean this very positively and from the heart, she said, "Why don't you let me do my own work?" And I never thought about that. I thought that I was helpful, but I really wasn't letting you take the ball and run with it. And that you said that to me in I think it was 95 or 96. And that affected me in everything that I did in a very positive way. And then Susan's also responsible for my wife and me buying my son and his family a home, because she had so much fun with her parents helping her with her home. And now she's in her second home on Oldham Street, I believe is the name of the street that you're on overall. But I've traveled the world with this young lady, and she has guided us through the world. We actually took her to San Diego. You didn't mention that. We were trying to get Tom Cruise to come see you because you're really into Tom Cruise.
Oh,
You've been just absolutely wonderful, Susan, in my life, and I'm very grateful for it. And you are in my prayers every day. And by the way, I'm learning to play the ukulele.
Yay, good. I'm just so grateful that you have taught us the customer service and the caring that we need to have as teachers. That's very important.
Well, thank you so much.
My head's still over here spinning that I don't know all my students' names, and you're throwing out Susan Bristow's third address in life. It's so intimidating.
Susan, I'm not kidding you. Susan has really changed my life, and I'm grateful for it.
I believe it. Okay, we've got Alicia.
Hi, Alicia.
Hi, Deb. I'm one of those you don't know very well.
Actually, I do know you, and I know of all the volunteer work that you've done. The thing that I like most of all when I was still there is you worked on food deficiencies for children. They got us to contribute to children, and I see you I'm on the email multiple times a day.
Okay.
It's
Well,
nice to
good.
have you. And I want to congratulate you and also give you a one-up for all the volunteering and community service, community domination work that you do. Your heart's in the right place, young lady.
Well, thank you. You are certainly one to aspire to mimic for sure. I had a question for you. There's been a lot of positives, and I don't want to be a Debbie Downer, but have you ever received feedback or comments from students that did not like your teaching style or did not like the way you taught something to them? And how did you handle any sort of critiques as or negative comments?
Oh, I've had people that said in 1982 I should have already retired. That really hurt. That really hurt. Yes, of the students that I have, I would tell you that somewhere between 5 and 7% of the students. Well, here's what I tell my students on the first day. 80% of you are going to really enjoy this class, and 50% of you are going to say this is the best class you've ever had. But there are 20% of you that are not going to like the class, and of those 20%, 10% of you are not going to like me. So what I have to do is make a presentation to the class I think will be involving of the whole class and seek to have a higher level of performance and empowerment with that class. One point I would like to make to you, Alicia, is that in those videos, those slides that I showed you, you hear sounds. I started using sounds 6, maybe 7 years ago on an experiment where I had 2 classes, each had 150 people in them. I did one of them with sounds and one of them without sounds and got the evaluation. And the sound class evaluation was far higher, far superior to a very good evaluation from those without the sounds. I did have one student that 3 years ago came to me and said, those sounds are distracting. And I said, well, I've done research work on this, and when the sounds ring out, people pay attention and they look up to the sounds. So my comment to you is experiment with cutting edge art and turn that art into something that is you and defines you overall. Molly will tell you, and Susan will tell you, Carol will tell you. I know they'll say, everybody thinks he knows his name. No, we had David Kurtz as our chairman for a while. And I taught with David for 1 year in Michigan. And the first thing that David said to the faculty, this guy will know everybody's name in the building and everybody's name in his classroom. That's just who he's known as being. But it's the personalization. My comment is, usually I say, well, thank you very much for your input. Let me think about how I can adjust that and make those adjustments to that process. That's a great question. Thank God I have somewhat of a religious background too, so I think of that in terms of a religious counseling kind of consideration. But one of the things I learned my very first year of teaching, Alicia, is never call down a student in class. And I did that. And the guy's name was Bill Matthews. And I made him cry. I said, man, I never want to do that again. Never, ever want to do that again. And I learned that was my first semester teaching at Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa. And that was before the winter time. So I've learned a lot from my mistakes. I've got some skinned knees. I've broken some bones, but they've all repaired. But if you're not trying things new, you're going to be behind everybody else, and especially now that you're all online.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alicia, for the question. See your son in front of you.
Yep, he loves to join me occasionally, quite often actually.
I see him at school, but he was a bit younger then.
Yeah.
Hello.
Xavier, can you say hi?
Hi.
He's a little shy.
That's okay. Thanks, Alicia.
Well, what I'd like to do is wrap things up here. I'll be posting the recording of this because I know we had some people like Stapp who were others that were in class and just joining us. So I'll be posting a recording of this, and maybe we could take the last bit of time for anyone that wants to stay on the call and talk with Deb. I know that he would love to hear from you. Deb, you are in our hallways every single day, more than you could imagine. And
there's a name on one of the stalls in the bathroom. It's mine.
Well,
you won't see that.
I have nothing I can add to that. But thank you so much to everyone on this call. It's just so fun to see everyone. I can't wait till everyone's back in this building. We'll be doing this again in March with a panel discussion. And for anyone that's in the building, I'm happy to provide lunch on behalf of Walton College with lunch boxes. But Deb, you set a high standard, and you just made our day by being here. So thank you.
I'll see you all in the spring. And I'll try to have an event in the spring where we can all have fun.
That
Maybe it'll
sounds
be after 5 o'clock so we can have a beer.
perfect. I
All
will
right.
keep this Zoom link open for anyone that wants to stay on, but thanks to each of you.
Thank you so much for the invitation. You guys have touched my heart.
Thank
you,
Dub.
so much, Dub. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Adnan. Keep up the good work. Congratulations.
Yes,
You've got
sir.
something
Thanks.
coming to you, by the way.
Thank you. Do you want my address or do you have all
I
that?
have it.
All right, sounds good.
I went ahead and got it.
I don't know if you were watching the videos, but there were at least 5 or 6 people crying during your talk.
Oh, really?
So you've touched the lives of Susan and Molly and Adriana and I don't know, 2, 3 more other people. And you've touched the lives of so many people, my friend. Thank you so much for your service. And if there is anything we can do to help or stay in touch with you, just let us know.
Adnan, you've done it today. This is the first time I've been in front of a group of people that are friends and that are colleagues of mine since June the 29th.
We love you,
And
Dub.
this is wonderful.
We
I'd
love
like
you.
to come back and do it again.
Thank you. Hopefully the pandemic will be over and we'll bring you back here on campus.
Thank you, Adnan. I've already had my first shot, Adnan.
Yes, sir.
I've got a second one coming up on February the 15th.
I'm getting mine on Monday, so we'll see.
It doesn't hurt, I promise.
Yeah,
Thank you, Adnan.
glad it won't. Thank you.
Enjoy your week.
You too. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So good to see you, Dub.
Adriana, how are you?
I'm happy now.
You're beautiful. How's Daniel?
He's good. We're all at home.
That's
so
good.
like working together, being together 24/7.
Now that's hard.
I think that's our call for help.
I've been around Christian for 30 minutes, and sometimes that can be hard. So if you have him 24 hours, I'm glad you love him. Maybe you can go over into your Portuguese language and kind of get in touch with him for a while. Christian, you both look so happy. That's one of the things I've always liked about both of you. Is you've always been so happy. I remember dearly when Daniel was born and the closeness that we got together as a family, not just the 3 of us or the 4 of us, but our whole area got together.
Yeah.
And I think back at those things, and those are things I will never, ever forget.
They're precious memories for us too, Dub, right? And I have to admit, every time I see you, right, I turn on the video, I see you, and the whole time I'm sitting here thinking, I just want to give him a hug, right? And that's what I would have done in the hallways, right? I would have given you a big, big hug.
You actually do with your smile. You actually do with your smile. You've done that regularly. You do that with your smile, and I'm very, very grateful for that.
Well, I'm so happy to see you, and I'm so happy to see you so well done. You look fantastic, seriously. What a
Are you
joy.
still using Camtasia?
Yes, sir.
All right. Well, you are the Camtasia expert.
You know it. No, I'm happy to see you. Seriously, I echo what Adnan said. You have to come back. We want more of our Dub. We need to touch you and to hug you, and it can't happen soon enough.
Thank you so much, Christian. I truly miss all of you. I miss the classroom situation. I miss being in the hallway. I miss interacting with you on a one-on-one basis. And then, when I see you out in the public, I like to introduce you to my wife, because many of you haven't met my wife. And she's the number one best part of my family. Isn't that right, Molly? She's tops overall. It's so great to see you.
Same here, Dub. Thank you.
Thank you.
And how
Thank you,
about
Adriana?
I don't know if you can see on your screen, but we have Scott Burton not working on research, but instead listening to you. I mean, how about that?
Hi, Scott.
Hi,
Dub.
That's right.
Scott, I miss your guitar playing in your office.
I had to take my guitar out of my office because actually